Any type of client that consumes an API sends an HTTP request to that API. We can use the documentation UI for sending those requests, or we can directly navigate to them via a browser. But we'll run into restrictions quite fast when we want to start sending requests to create or update resources in which we need to manipulate the headers. So we're going to use Postman for that, as that tool makes it easier to create HTTP requests and inspect the responses. Let's say we want to create a request. We can choose the HTTP method to use for the request, and we can input a URI. In our case, we'd like to get back the list of cities. So that's a GET request to API/cities. Our API is still up and running. Let me copy the route, including the port. We add API/cities, and let's click send. And we hit an error. Apparently, there's an SSL error. Unable to verify the first certificate. We're running over HTTPS, and by default, Postman will try to verify the certificate we use for that. But seeing we're using Microsoft's built-in development certificate, which is a self-signed localhost certificate, it cannot correctly be validated. So we have to disable that. For that, we can click Disable SSL Verification. And there we go. SSL verification was disabled, and we see our response. A list of cities. You can also disable and enable SSL verification from the settings. You can find it on the General tab. Now, as mentioned in the beginning of this course, we'll send quite a lot of requests in the upcoming modules. And I created a Postman collection that contains all of that. Like that, you don't have to type them in, which makes it a lot easier to follow along. From my GitHub, you can download the request for this collection. It's also in the exercises files download if you prefer that. I already downloaded it to disk. Let's import it. Let me first close this request. We don't need it anymore. To import something, we open the File menu and choose Import. Here we can then drop the Postman collection or select it. So you click Upload Files, navigate to wherever you saved the Postman collection, and click Open. We indeed want to import the ASP.NET Core 6 Web API Fundamentals collection, so let's click Import, and the collection was imported. You can find it by clicking the Collection button, and it should now be shown in your collection list. This collection includes a list of all the requests we're going to send in this course. Important to know is that all these requests contain a variable in their URL, port number. I added this because your default port number for this project probably won't be the same as mine. So what you need to do first is create that variable. For that, click the I button next to Environments and choose to add a new variable with name port number. You should give it the value of the port your API is currently running on. You can find that in the Launch Settings file or also in the console window if your application is up and running. In my case, that's 7169. So let's input that, and there we go. The port number variable in the URI should now automatically be replaced by the real port number. So let's click Send. And that is indeed the case, because we again get back our 2 cities. So far for setting up Postman. Let's switch back to our code. So our code works, but we're still just returning some JSON directly from anonymous objects. This isn't necessarily a realistic scenario. In most architectures, you'd work with model classes, POCOs or DTOs, that are then serialized to and from JSON, or any other format. Let's improve on our application architecture in the next demo.